We live in a world where illusion is presented as truth, and truth is treated as conspiracy. This in-depth documentary reveals how governments, media, and institutions shape perception, suppress awareness, and control collective thought. It exposes the hidden mechanisms of societal programming, from politics and education to religion and money, and explores what it truly means to awaken from the global hypnosis that defines modern life. The aim is not to persuade you to believe anything. It is to open the mind to possibility, to examine the structures that shape what we call reality, and to see beyond them, because what you'll hear in this documentary challenges the accepted version of life, the version repeated by politicians, educators, and the media. If you're ready to look beyond the surface, to connect the dots, and to reclaim your right to think independently, then this is where that journey begins. Subscribe, like, and share this video, because the more people who awaken, the less control illusion can hold. The phrase "free your mind" is often used as a slogan, but it is far more than that. To free the mind means to question everything that has been taught to us as absolute truth. It means recognizing that belief systems, whether political, religious, or scientific, are structures built to contain perception. Freedom is not something granted by authority. It is our natural state of being. Yet most people spend their lives asking permission from the very systems that enslave them: governments, institutions, and leaders who claim to represent us, but who instead dictate how we think, act, and even feel. The illusion of freedom is maintained through fear. Fear of breaking social rules, fear of punishment, fear of rejection. This fear keeps billions compliant. People obey because they believe the price of rebellion is too high, when in reality, the cost of obedience is far greater. It is the loss of the self. Throughout history, those who challenged the official truth were labeled dangerous or insane. Every great shift in human understanding began with one person refusing to conform. Once, humanity believed the earth was flat, that the sun revolved around us, and that questioning authority was a crime. Those who spoke out were ridiculed or destroyed, yet time proved them right. Today, society looks back on such ignorance with disbelief, unaware that it continues in new forms. We are told that we live at the peak of civilization, that technology, politics, and media have advanced human progress. Yet this progress has turned the planet into chaos, not harmony. The world is upside down. Everything is reversed. Doctors destroy health through a pharmaceutical system driven by profit. Lawyers manipulate justice. Universities restrict knowledge. Governments erase freedom. The major media distort information, and religions bury spirituality under ritual and fear. This is not a coincidence. It is a design, a structure built to keep humanity distracted, divided, and asleep. The system feeds on confusion. It relies on people never connecting the dots between the events they see and the forces that create them. When we fail to connect the dots, the world seems chaotic. Politics appears corrupt, wars seem random, and the economy looks uncontrollable. But when the connections are made between government, finance, media, education, and religion, the pattern becomes visible. That pattern reveals a single objective: control. Control of thought, emotion, and perception. Humanity is kept in a permanent state of distraction, endless news, entertainment, conflict, and fear, so that few ever pause to see the larger picture. We are told that democracy gives us choice, yet all choices are illusions, different faces of the same power structure. Elections simply rotate managers of the same agenda. while citizens celebrate the privilege of voting for their own servitude. The media sustain this illusion by controlling the narrative. They tell us what is real, what is acceptable, and what to ignore. They filter truth, ensuring that only the version of reality that maintains the system reaches the public. Real journalism, the kind that exposes corruption or challenges power, is punished, silenced, or ignored. Meanwhile, those who repeat the official story are rewarded as credible sources. The result is a population that believes it is informed while being systematically misled. Education plays its part too. From childhood, people are conditioned to memorize, not to think. They are trained to repeat information, not to question it. The structure of schooling rewards conformity and punishes curiosity. The outcome is predictable: obedient citizens who mistake indoctrination for knowledge. This programming begins early. Children are told to pass exams, to follow rules, to seek approval. As adults, the same control mechanisms continue through debt, employment, media, and social pressure. The treadmill never stops. Study, work, consume, obey. Few ever pause to ask why. As Oscar Wilde once said, most people are other people. Their thoughts are someone else's, opinions. Their lives a mimicry, their passions a quotation. The system depends on this repetition. It needs people to copy and conform, not to think freely. The result is a world where human potential is stifled. Creativity is crushed beneath routine. Spiritual awareness is buried under material obsession. And while the population competes and distracts itself, a small group of power brokers shapes global direction from behind the curtain. Every distraction, from celebrity worship to partisan politics, serves a single function: to keep people focused outward, never inward. To prevent them from realizing the true nature of their reality and the immense power of consciousness itself. We are not physical bodies defined by class, race, or nationality. We are consciousness, infinite awareness experiencing a temporary human form. But when that awareness is trapped in the illusion of separation, humanity becomes easily manipulated. The true prison, then, is not built of stone or steel. It is the mental cage that makes suit identify with limitation. Those who control perception control the world, because perception defines reality. Reality is not what it seems. What we call the physical world is a projection, a decoded field of energy and information interpreted by the human mind. Science itself acknowledges that what we perceive as solid matter is mostly empty space, and that all forms are vibrations at different frequencies. Our bodies, our identities, even our thoughts are expressions of this field. We are not separate from it. We are it. Consciousness is the foundation of existence. Yet most people are unaware of this truth, confined instead within a narrow band of perception defined by the five senses. The human body functions like a biological computer. It receives information from its environment, decodes it through these senses, and creates what we perceive as reality. But this decoding process can be manipulated. If the input is controlled through media, education, religion, and culture, then the output, our perception of reality, can be controlled as well. This is the essence of psychological enslavement. The system does not need chains when it can program belief. A population that believes its servitude is freedom will never rebel. From childhood, we are conditioned. Identify with the body, the name, the social label, to say, I am this. Yet these are only temporary experiences, not the essence of who we are. When we forget our deeper nature as consciousness, we become trapped within the physical illusion, disconnected from the infinite intelligence that exists beyond the senses. Everything that exists, from galaxies to human beings, is a manifestation of the same universal energy. Separation is an illusion created by limited perception. When consciousness forgets its unity, it experiences fear, competition, and control. This is how humanity is divided: by race, religion, gender, politics, and ideology, each a different mask of the same disconnection. Modern society enforces this separation through constant comparison and conflict. People define themselves by what they are against, not by what they are. They cling to external identities, national, racial, professional, and defend them as if they are the self. But these are programs, not truth. Science is beginning to confirm what ancient knowledge already knew. The universe is a holographic projection of consciousness. What we perceive as physical is only information decoded by the brain. The world is not out there, it is experienced within. As Einstein observed, reality is an illusion, albeit a persistent one. The persistence comes from collective agreement, a shared belief system maintained through repetition and authority. Control, therefore, operates through perception. If people can be made to see illusion as reality, they will act accordingly. The system thrives on this misdirection, feeding the illusion that life is a random struggle of individuals rather than the interconnected expression of one consciousness. When consciousness identifies solely with the body, the genetic spacesuit, its awareness becomes trapped within a limited frequency band. This creates the illusion of separation, competition, and survival. The manipulators of perception exploit this by ensuring people focus entirely on the material, the external world, possessions, and status, while neglecting the internal world of awareness. In truth, what we call death is merely shift of perception, the movement of consciousness from one frequency to another. The energy that animates life cannot die. It only changes form. Those who have had near-death experiences consistently describe the same realization, that everything is connected, that time and distance are illusions, and that existence continues beyond physical form. The implications are profound. If humanity understood that life and consciousness are eternal, fear would lose its power. Fear is the primary weapon of control. Fear of death, of failure, of rejection, of authority. Remove fear, and control collapses. Our experience of reality, then, depends on the range of frequencies our consciousness can access. The wider the range, the greater the awareness. Those who control society know this. They bombard humanity with distractions, chemicals, and electromagnetic interference, anything that keeps consciousness confined to a narrow spectrum of perception. The goal is disconnection, to prevent people from realizing that they are part of a unified field of infinite consciousness. When that disconnection succeeds, individuals begin to see themselves as powerless, isolated beings struggling in a hostile world. But when the illusion is seen for what it is, the control system unravels. Awareness expands. The individual begins to perceive the structure of manipulation, and once seen, it cannot be unseen. We live in a matrix of perception, a system designed to keep awareness locked in limitation. Yet the key to escaping it has always been within. It begins when we question everything we've been told about who we are and what reality is. The awakening is not rebellion against authority. It is recognition of truth. It is the moment consciousness remembers itself beyond illusion. And that is the first step toward freedom. Every system of control begins with the manipulation of perception. And perception, at its core, is a decoding process, an interpretation of vibrational information that the brain translates into the world we see and feel. What we experience as solid reality is a projection generated by the mind's interface with a limited frequency band known as visible light. This range represents less than 1/10,000th of 1% of all known energy in the universe. Humanity is effectively blind to the vast majority of what exists around it. The body functions as a biological computer, a system of hardware and software designed to interpret and react to environmental data. The senses act as input devices, translating frequency information into neural codes. The brain is the central processing unit, decoding these signals into images, sounds, and sensations. The DNA acts as the hard drive, storing ancestral data and personality templates that shape behavior and potential. Like any computer, the body's performance depends on the programs it runs and the information it receives. If the programming is corrupted or limited, perception becomes distorted. This is how human beings can be trapped in a simulation of belief, convinced that what they see is the whole of existence. When the input is controlled by media, education, and authority, the output, human thought and behavior, can be predicted and guided. This is why social systems are structured the way they are. Every institution from school to government acts as a programmer, feeding the mind with repetitive data until it conforms. People call this education, but it is, in truth, the engineering of perception. The biological computer responds to its environment by adjusting chemically and electrically. Hormones, neurotransmitters, and cellular signals act as code. When these signals are manipulated through fear, stress, or chemical interference, human consciousness becomes trapped in the body's feedback loop. A fearful mind produces a fearful body, and a fearful body reinforces the fearful mind. This is the self-perpetuating cycle of control. It requires no visible master, only consistent stimulation through news, advertising, and social pressure. Within the human body exists a network of electrical energy known for millennia as the aura or energy field. Science recognizes its equivalent as the electromagnetic field. This field interacts with the energy of the Earth and with others around us. When this field is balanced, consciousness flows freely. But when it is disrupted, through pollution, radiation, toxic emotion, or synthetic chemicals, the flow of information slows down. Just as a computer infected with a virus runs slowly or crashes, the body's information system begins to malfunction. Illness, confusion, and emotional instability follow. Modern medicine treats symptoms while ignoring the system's corruption, because the health industry itself is built upon maintaining illness as a source of profit. The same principle applies to all systems of power. Governments maintain fear to justify control. Corporations maintain dependence to ensure obedience. Religions maintain guilt to guarantee loyalty. The methods differ, but the mechanism is identical. Limit awareness to limit freedom. Even emotions themselves are largely chemical programs. Love, anger, fear, and jealousy are not abstract forces. They are biochemical reactions triggered by electrical signals. This is why the same emotional stimulus produces predictable responses across individuals. The system knows how to press the right buttons because it understands the human code. But consciousness, the true self, exists beyond the code. It is the energy that animates the biological computer but is not defined by it. Death, therefore, is merely the shutdown of the hardware, not the end of the operator. When consciousness leaves the body, it detaches from the limitation of linear time, and physical space. Many who experience near-death events describe a panoramic awareness, seeing all events of their lives simultaneously, existing everywhere at once, free of fear and emotion. This demonstrates that time is not a universal constant, but a decoding illusion, the byproduct of the brain processing events in sequence. In reality, everything exists in the same moment, layered across frequencies. What we call past and future are simply coordinates in an infinite field of now. To the biological computer, this illusion is convincing because it is all the body can decode. Yet the consciousness that animates it is infinite, unrestricted by form or sequence. The system of control thrives by keeping humanity focused on the computer, on the body, the ego, and the material world, so that few ever realize they are the programmers, not the program. From this understanding emerges a crucial realization. The manipulators of society are not merely political or financial elites. They are engineers of perception, who understand how the human system works, how vibration, emotion, and thought can be redirected to produce compliance. Advertising exploits it. Religion sanctifies it. Education cements it. The result is a population that willingly accepts its own programming, unaware that it can rewrite the code. Freedom, then, begins not with revolution, but with reprogramming. To free the world, we must first free the operating system of the mind, deleting fear, restoring curiosity, and reconnecting with the infinite field of consciousness that exists beyond the limits of the five senses. Modern civilization is designed to favor one half of the human brain over the other, the analytical, linear, and structured left hemisphere. The right hemisphere, which perceives wholeness, intuition, and connection, has been systematically suppressed. This imbalance is not accidental. It is central to maintaining control over human perception. The left brain sees life as a series of parts. It categorizes, labels, and measures. It defines identity through boundaries and separation. It is essential for navigation in the physical world, but when it dominates, it blinds consciousness to the deeper unity of existence. The right brain, in contrast, experiences reality as interconnected. It senses patterns rather than fragments, intuition rather than logic, empathy rather than analysis. When both hemispheres work together, a human being can perceive the total picture, the physical and the non-physical, the seen and unseen. The structure of modern society reinforces left brain dominance at every level. Education rewards memory and repetition. Science denies anything that cannot be measured. Religion demands belief rather than experience. As a result, the population is trained to see reality as separate objects in space rather than a living network of energy. The purpose is simple. A divided mind cannot perceive unity, and a divided humanity cannot challenge its masters. When awareness is restricted to logic and reason alone, it becomes predictable and programmable. From childhood, people are conditioned to suppress the intuitive side of themselves. They are told imagination is fantasy, that dreams are meaningless, and that intuition is unreliable. Yet intuition is the natural language of consciousness. It is how we access information beyond the senses. By cutting people off from it, the system disconnects them from their own inner guidance, forcing them to rely on external authority to interpret reality. This imbalance between hemispheres has produced an entire civilization, rooted in analysis without wisdom, science without conscience, progress without understanding. It has created what can be described as a left brain prison, a mental state in which perception is confined to the physical and the quantifiable. Consider how the educational system mirrors this structure. From the first years of school, children are rewarded for remembering and repeating the official curriculum. Creativity and questioning are discouraged. Those who think differently are labeled as failures or misfits. The process continues through university, where students are funneled into increasingly narrow specialties. The most obedient memorists become the experts who define accepted knowledge. These individuals then occupy positions of influence in science, medicine, politics, and academia, perpetuating the same left brain programming that shaped them. The result is a self-reinforcing hierarchy of conformity. The system celebrates intelligence, yet it measures it by the ability to agree with the system itself. Those who challenge the paradigm are dismissed as irrational, even when evidence supports them. This is not education, it is conditioning. It ensures that those who rise to the top of society are the most thoroughly programmed, incapable of seeing beyond the limits of their mental cage. The scientific establishment is a clear example. It dismisses any evidence that does not fit its model of materialism, the belief that only the physical is real. The irony is that quantum physics, one of science's own discoveries, has proven that matter is energy and that observation itself shapes reality. Yet mainstream institutions ignore this implication because it threatens the foundation of their authority. The same imbalance appears in politics. Policy decisions are made through cold logic divorced from empathy. Problems are dissected into fragments, economics, defense, law, without seeing how they interconnect. Governments act as left-brain entities, unable to grasp the holistic nature of life. This imbalance has infected every layer of human life. It is why humanity builds machines that destroy ecosystems while calling it progress. It is why people chase status and material gain at the expense of meaning and community. It is why emotion is seen as weakness and intuition as superstition. The consequence is a civilization, brilliant in technology but bankrupt in wisdom. Humanity has learned how to manipulate atoms but not how to live in harmony with itself. The left brain has taken the steering wheel, and the right brain, the bridge to consciousness, has been silenced. Yet the balance can be restored. Neuroscience has shown that meditation, creativity, and connection with nature activate the right hemisphere. Ancient practices like art, music, and contemplation were not luxuries. They were technologies of balance, designed to integrate the two halves of perception. When the hemispheres reconnect, perception expands. Fear dissolves. The sense of separation begins to fade. This is the true awakening. Not a mystical escape from reality, but a return to wholeness within it. The manipulators of perception know this. They understand that a balanced, whole-brained population cannot be controlled. This is why the system constantly pushes people toward distraction, anxiety, and conflict. States that reinforce the analytical mind and block intuitive awareness. To awaken, therefore, is to reclaim the right hemisphere, to restore the bridge between logic and intuition, science and spirit, analysis and empathy. Only then can we see the full picture of reality, and only then can we dismantle the invisible architecture of control. The prison exists only as long as we identify with it. Once we remember that consciousness is the observer, not the observed, the programmer, not the program, the cell door opens and the illusion loses its power. The system that governs human life is not random. It is a meticulously constructed architecture of control, a self-perpetuating mechanism that operates through institutions, culture, and belief. It is not maintained by soldiers or police, but by perception. the most effective form of control ever devised. When control operates through perception, no physical enforcement is necessary. People police themselves. They accept their boundaries because they believe them to be natural. The invisible structure of power becomes internalized, transforming thought into obedience and obedience into stability. This architecture is built upon several foundational pillars: information, economy, authority, and identity. Each works together to ensure that humanity remains divided, distracted, and dependent. Control the narrative and you control the mind. Information is the oxygen of freedom. Without it, consciousness suffocates. The institutions that dominate information, governments, corporations, and media conglomerates know this well. News is not presented to inform, but to shape emotion and perception. Headlines are designed to trigger fear or outrage, ensuring people remain reactive rather than reflective. When emotion governs perception, critical thought shuts down. Television, radio, and digital media repeat the same stories across different channels, giving the illusion of diversity while promoting identical viewpoints. This is not a conspiracy of newsrooms. It is the structure of the system itself. Ownership determines content, and content determines belief. Once the population accepts the narrative of authority, they will defend it, even against their own interests. Education reinforces this conditioning. From the first day of school, children learn to accept information from authority figures rather than question it. Textbooks present history as a sequence of facts, not as interpretations. Students are rewarded for agreement, not inquiry. The outcome is a public that equates conformity with intelligence and obedience with success. Money is the blood of the system. But unlike natural circulation, it flows upward, not outward. The economic structure is designed to convert human energy into centralized power. Through debt, taxation, and inflation, individuals are kept in a perpetual state of scarcity, working harder, yet never reaching sufficiency. The illusion of freedom is maintained by consumer choice. People are told they can buy what they wish, travel where they like, and speak as they please. Yet all these freedoms depend on money, and money depends on compliance. Those who control the supply of money control the behavior of nations. Through financial institutions, global corporations, and international banks, decisions that shape billions of lives are made by a few unseen hands. Economic crises, often portrayed as accidents, are in truth mechanisms of redistribution, transferring wealth from the many to the few. Recessions, inflation, and market collapses serve to tighten control and reinforce dependence on centralized authority. Authority is the psychological cornerstone of control. People have been conditioned from birth to obey. Parents, teachers, employers, police, and politicians. Obedience is disguised as virtue. But authority, when accepted without question, becomes self-reinforcing. Those in power justify their position through law, and the law legitimizes their power. The illusion of democracy conceals this circular structure. Citizens vote for representatives who serve not the people, but the system that funds their campaigns and shapes their policies. No matter who wins an election, the agenda of control remains untouched. The spectacle of politics divides the population into opposing camps, ensuring that they fight each other instead of questioning the system itself. War is another instrument of authority. It creates fear, nationalism, and dependency. It justifies surveillance, censorship, and the restriction of freedom. Every major war has been accompanied by propaganda, the art of turning mass murder into moral duty. Perhaps the most insidious form of control is identity, the belief that who we are is defined by external labels. Race, nationality, religion, gender, and ideology are all divisions that separate one consciousness from another. By persuading people to define themselves through difference, the system prevents them from recognizing their unity. Conflict, prejudice, and competition are not natural states of humanity. They are cultivated to ensure division. A divided population is easily governed, easily manipulated, and easily pacified. Social media has become the latest tool in this process. It feeds the ego, amplifies division, and rewards emotional reaction over reflection. Algorithms are designed to keep users outraged or addicted, ensuring endless engagement and distraction. People fight battles of opinion while the architects of control remain invisible, untouched, unchallenged, and always in power. The modern world is a theater of noise. Entertainment, advertising, and endless digital stimulation occupy the senses from dawn to dusk. This constant bombardment of triviality numbs awareness and prevents contemplation. In this environment, silence becomes revolutionary. Reflection becomes rebellion. The architecture of control, then, is not sustained by force but by participation. Humanity builds its own prison through attention, by feeding energy into systems that exploit it. To step outside the illusion requires only a simple act: to withdraw attention from the false and direct it toward the real. Every illusion eventually reaches its breaking point. The control system, despite its complexity, is fragile because it depends on ignorance. The moment people remember who they are, infinite consciousness experiencing a temporary human form, the structure begins to collapse. Awakening is not the acquisition of new beliefs, it is the removal of false ones. It is the recognition that the world's chaos and conflict are projections of the collective mind. When perception changes, reality follows. At its core, awakening is a shift from identification to observation, from I am the body to I am the awareness experiencing the body. This single change of perspective transforms everything. The moment you realize you are not the program, you can rewrite it. Consciousness is like light. It reveals whatever it touches. When awareness expands, hidden structures of control become visible. Lies can no longer survive in the presence of truth. This is why the system fears awakening more than revolution. Revolutions replace rulers, but awakening dissolves the very concept of rulership. The awakening process begins individually but ripples collectively. As one person expands their perception, they affect the field of consciousness around them. Studies in quantum physics have shown that observation itself influences matter. Similarly, awareness influences reality. When enough individuals awaken, the collective perception shifts, and the illusion of control loses its power. This is not a utopian fantasy. It is a natural law of consciousness. Energy follows attention. When humanity stops feeding fear and division, those energies fade. The world we experience is the mirror of our collective state of mind. If the mirror shows conflict, it is because consciousness has been fragmented. Healing begins when awareness reunites with itself. The awakening of consciousness also transforms how we relate to death. Understanding that consciousness cannot die removes the foundation of fear. Without fear, manipulation fails. Authority loses legitimacy. Systems of punishment and reward collapse. In awakening, empathy returns. People begin to see themselves in others. Judgment gives way to understanding. Violence loses appeal because it is recognized as self-inflicted harm. The economy of exploitation cannot survive when people refuse to participate. Governments lose control when citizens no longer consent to being governed by deceit. The machinery of distraction breaks down when awareness refuses to look away. Awakening does not require belief in supernatural forces or mysticism. It requires honesty, the courage to question one's own assumptions, and the willingness to see beyond the programming of culture. The truth has always been simple. We're consciousness, not form, awareness, not identity. As this realization spreads, a new form of civilization becomes possible, one built not on hierarchy or control, but on cooperation and truth. This is not a future imposed from above, but created from within. The architects of control cannot design it because it arises spontaneously from consciousness itself. Every individual who awakens becomes a node of light in the network of awareness. Each act of compassion, curiosity, or understanding expands the frequency of the whole. The illusion dissolves one realization at a time, until the system that once appeared unshakable is revealed as nothing more than a shadow cast by human forgetfulness. The awakening, therefore, is not coming. It is already happening. Each moment of insight, each question asked, each illusion seen through contributes to it. The tide cannot be stopped because it is driven by consciousness reclaiming its power. The purpose of the system has always been to keep humanity asleep, but no system can hold back infinite awareness forever. The truth, once remembered, cannot be unlearned. The journey toward awakening begins not with rebellion, but with remembrance, remembering that the world we see is a reflection of the world within. The structures of control thrive on our participation, our fear, and our forgetfulness. The moment we stop feeding them, they fade. Every thought of clarity, every act of kindness, every refusal to believe them, manufactured narrative weakens the system. Truth does not need armies, it needs awareness. What we call the real world is only as real as our agreement with it. Change the agreement, and the world changes. Humanity's task is not to destroy the system, but to transcend it, to step beyond illusion into the recognition of what has always been true. Freedom has never been granted by authority. It is the natural state of consciousness once it remembers itself. And that remembrance begins with questioning everything. If this message resonated with you, share it. Let awareness spread. Like the video, subscribe to this channel for more explorations of truth, and add your voice in the comments. Because awakening is not a solitary act. It is a shared rising of awareness that reclaims the destiny of humanity itself.